Hi everyone, I'm going to just do a short little video about making royal icing. So there's all different ways of making royal icing, but I am going to pipe about 25 letters and I probably need 2 teaspoons of royal icing to make that. So if I'm doing decorative piping, I'm just going to show you a big cake. So on this cake, I don't know, you can have a quick look. Can you see I've got all this lovely black piping, lots of C scrolls, S scrolls, piping. Now in order for me to pipe and get a really great finish, I basically have to make my own royal icing. Because with royal icing, once you've made royal icing, you've allowed your egg whites to sit for 24 hours in the fridge, separated from the yolks, you'll find that you have a great stretch and you have less snap. And you might go, what's she on about snapping? But with royal icing, especially when you're doing longer stretches and attaching to a cake, you get what we call snapping. I'm not snappy, but the royal icing can be snappy. So basically, I would not use this product for piping, lots of piping. I use this product when I just need a small amount. And the product is a product made by Cake Art. And this is available through cake ornament stores and quite a few other stores available here in sunny Australia. Now, in the actual ingredients, it's already got the egg white, it's also, which is the albumin, it's also got the beautiful icing sugar, and it's got a bit of food acid. So food acid basically is the lemon juice. Now when you buy this, this basically is the one-stop recipe. Now when I use it, I have to sift it because it's quite lumpy. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just sprinkle. And I'm just going to push that icing through. Now in olden days, we used to, okay, cover your ears, we used to push our icing through stockings. Hopefully they will wash, but basically we would put them through a really fine mesh and fine lovely stockings that were washed were used to pass the icing through. Now I've noticed a few people when they come here to Australia and they do piping, if they use our icing powder or icing sugar is really not refined, it's really lumpy and bumpy. So sometimes I will actually put it through a food processor and then pass it through a fine sieve about 3 times. But this product is a really, really great product. And then just to store it, I go to my favourite store, IKEA, and just seal it up, and then I store it in a container. Now I'm not going to use all this icing because I'm only going to pipe about 15 letters. Notice I try and dump everything onto a tray so that I work tidy. I'm just going to adjust the camera, just make sure you can all see what I'm up to. So this morning I just shot a quick video on how to make a detailed rope effect around the bottom of a cake that's going out lunchtime. I'm also going to put some bullet candles onto the cake in a minute. So I've charged my camera up, so hopefully the video battery won't die. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to put some bullet candles onto the cake, and these are kind of like in the shape of a bullet, and I love these candles. They are so easy to put on, and I'll show you how I do that in a minute. So what I'm going to do in a minute, I'm going to pipe a really nice simple inscription on the cake board. Okay. Now next week I'm going to shoot a couple of videos and I want to give a few people some light bulb moments. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about piping next week, but it'll probably be next weekend. And I'm going to do I'll put something up on Facebook, and I'm probably going to do a live, Facebook live for probably about a 40-minute, and it'll obviously be on replay. But I want to share some secrets about piping, and it might blow your socks off. But if you're in Australia, you probably ain't going to wear socks. So Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly talk about piping bags. There are all types of piping bags out there, but because I'm just going to make and pipe a small amount, I'm going to use a Loyal piping bag. I love Loyal. Their products are really, really great. Good quality. They do the knives. They do a huge range. Because I'm piping a small amount, I don't need a huge piping bag, okay? And realistically, I'm going to put about 2 to 3 teaspoons of icing in my bag. That's all. We're going to use a coupling system. So a coupling system is brilliant because what it does, it has a screw mechanism, and if you want to, you can pipe and you can remove the tips. Now, people call these piping tips, people call them piping tubes. They have about 4 different other names, and because I've only had 2 coffees, I can't remember the other names. But some people call them piping tips, piping tubes, and basically it's a narrowed end. It can also have a pattern, and basically depending on what the end is, how big it is, will depend on how large or small or fine or patterned it will pipe. So what you do, you can just fold over, and they have a seamed, ironed, steamed. What I don't do is I don't cut the ends, and that might be a strange thing for some people, but I find that once I start cutting the ends, it starts to fray. Okay, so I fold it over, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the screw top mechanism into the bottom of the bag, and I'm going to pipe with a number 2 tip. Now my tip, excuse the pun, but my tip is when you buy piping tips or piping tubes, just buy the same brand. Whether it's PME, whether it's Wilton, whether it's Loyal, just buy the same brand. And then get a few numbers, number 2s, number 3s. But because you'll find that when you start piping, different brands have different sizes. Okay, so, and then I'm going to pipe with a number 2. I'm just going to drop it into that cavity, and then that is actually going to screw up on top of my bag. Now, some coupling systems, when you buy them, sometimes you might buy different brands, and sometimes they will not connect properly and they'll be wobbly and loose. And when you push your icing through, they will split and open. So just make sure that you've got the same piping tip and as that. Now, when I normally pipe, I normally have a clean chuck cloth or J cloth or a blue cloth with some water, so that when I park my piping bag on my bench and I'm resting it for a few minutes, I normally squeeze a pearl to come out, and then I cover it either in a plastic bag or on a damp cloth. And then when I'm ready, I break the pearl off and I carry on squeezing. If you don't have any icing at the end when you rest your bag on your bench, it will start to dry, and it will start to dry inside the tip, and then your tip will fill up and it will be too hard, and you'll try and squeeze it, and you will not get a perfectly rounded pattern if it's a plain tip, or if it's a ribbon, a rose, you know, a scroll or a shell piping tip. You will not get a clean defined. Okay, now I tend to have several number 2s or number 3s, just so you know. I don't believe in forcing a needle in there either, so sometimes I would just simply take the tube off and run this into a warm jug of water and just clear that tip if you've only got the one, but don't force it. But when you're piping, make sure that if you park your your piping tip on your bench, just make sure that you squeeze a little pearl coming out the end, okay? And then keep it covered with a damp, clean dishcloth. And then when you're ready to go, take the cloth off and then pop your pearl, and you can carry on piping. Okay, so I've got some water in here. Now when I use water that's either filtered or it's boiled and it's cool. I tend not to use tap water. I grew up in London, hence my accent, and the water there is really scary. So I just kind of always filter my water. So I've got a cranked palette knife, and I'm going to colour this purple. Now, when we colour raw icing, we can use liquid colours, but realistically I use paste gel colours, and basically it depends on what the amount I'm doing. Sometimes I will use liquid and I will add liquid colour and not as much water, but I'm going to use the AmeriColor purple. And what I'm going to do first of all is just pop a tiny little bit of water in the bottom of that dish, so that when I put my icing sugar in there, it won't stick at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to get 1, 2, 3 and 4 teaspoons of the icing sugar mixture, and then using a small crank palette knife I'm going to work it into a mix. Okay, and I'm going to add some more. So say hello if you're watching, let me know where you're from. I've got some locals I can see that are watching, but this will also be added onto my page, so a few times I always wait for people to gather, but you can re-watch this again. Okay, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix it, and at the minute it's a little bit too firm, and I'm just going around scraping all of that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to literally dip my knife in that water and just do 2 dots, okay, and I'm going to let it down. Okay, now when you make your raw icing, your own raw icing, using your egg whites and your lemon juice and your icing sugar, I tend to find that the icing is really brilliant white. It's like Snow White, okay, but not like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. You're going to groan at that bad joke. Now I actually need a little bit more icing, so I'm going to add another spoon, 2 more spoons of water, and I'm just going to add a couple of drops. Notice I just take it from the knife and I don't take it from the actual container, okay, because it's amazing how little water you need for piping. Now when I add the colour, it will suddenly become looser and slacker. Okay, now I can also add more icing sugar to the mixture, but realistically when I add the gel colour, it will start to slacken a little bit. Okay, but can you see? You probably can't see, but at the bottom I've got no dried powder because I actually put the water. I sound so common when I say water, but I put all the water in the bottom of the dish. Okay, so and now, so with our colours, there are different types of colours. We've got the Wilton little jars, and we've got also the squeezy bottles. So I'm going to give this a shake. And then I'm just going to give it 1 little dot. Okay, and I'm going to use a cut satay stick or kebab stick and give this a stir. Now, at the minute, it is very purpley. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add maybe a little bit of pink, but actually this is quite a nice colour, because what this is going to do, it's going to complement the cake board, okay, in the piping. So I'm going to mix all that colour and just scrape it. So can you see how little the containers are? And you may go, where on earth did she buy these? These are little microwave containers. You can get them in most cookware stores, not necessarily cake decorating stores. And these are perfect for little sticky toffee puddings and chocolate puddings. They're microwave proof, okay? So now I've got a nice purple. Now, sometimes purples tend to fade. It's kind of based on the pigment. So what I generally do, if I find, especially when it was the millennium and it was the year 2000 and all the cakes were going out which were purple for the New Year's party, what I actually ended up doing was mixing a bit of pink and a bit of blue together, because sometimes purple is notorious for fading grey. There are some questions coming up. I'm a beginner and some of these tips I have no clue about. Oh, why don't you have any clue about? If you watch it at the beginning, you'll understand. But what I'm going to do, Rusty, I'm going to do a video next weekend, and I'm going to really show you some brilliant tips on piping and practicing piping, because practice doesn't make perfect. Practice will make progress, and I'm going to show you some really simple ways of practicing piping. I'm going to demyth the nervousness that people have around piping. Okay, so now I've got a nice mixture. It's a little bit firm. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to dip my knife into the water, give it one shake, and then just do another couple of drops. Okay, and I'm going to work it in. Okay, I want this piping raw icing mixture to be a really nice, easy piping consistency. I do not want it to give me a hernia when I put it in the bag. Okay, now notice I'm scraping all the way around because I do not want that icing to be too dry. So the next thing I'm going to do, now you could, if you wanted to, you could just get a plastic cup and you could pop this into a plastic cup. What I'm going to do is just fold it onto itself. I'm going to get the icing and I'm going to load it up into my bag. I'm going to use my fingers and thumb to hold it into the bag. Okay, I always fold it down the bag. Okay, get a little bit more. Now with icing, we cannot really get a great result in piping sort of silver or gold. But if I've got to pipe silver onto a cake, I will pipe a grey colour, and then I will get a brush, a metallic paint, and then paint it on top. So you cannot really add gold or silver because it just dissolves in the icing. Now once you've got it into the bag, the next tip I normally do is I use a cake smoother, or you can use a ruler. And what I want to do is I want to just push that icing back into the bag. Okay, so when we ice, when we use raw icing, we really need a small amount in our bag. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a bit of a connection. I'm going to attach and then lift up and then drop down. I've got a little bit of a break there, so I'm going to lift it up again and bring it down. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to upscale the size of my tip. And I have a number 2 in there, but I'm actually going to change it. And I'm going to change it to a number 3. So can you see how easy it is just to unscrew the tips and then reconnect? And then I'm going to start again. And I'm going to lift it up and drop it down, because that size is just too small. So when I put my bag down, I want to just squeeze a little bit of that there. Place it down like so. I'm just going to wipe this bit. Okay, so this is the cake that I'm going to pipe on, and I'm going to need to move the camera around, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to see once I get the camera here. Okay, so you may get my beautiful head in position, but that's okay. All right, now if I wanted to, I could just mark this here, and that is the center of my cake. Okay, so you can see that. And what I'm aiming for is I'm going to put some little candles, bullet candles, along this side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pipe Happy 6th birthday, Sahana. Okay, so when I pipe, there are different ways of piping. Now what you can do, if you wanted to and you were really nervous about piping, you could get an edible pen and you could write the inscription on your cake board. Okay, let me show you what an edible pen is. So with our edible pens, I like it that they call them a gourmet writer. But basically they are an edible pen, so you can, the ink is not going to be toxic or, you know, poisonous if you consume it, but realistically no one's going to lick the cake board or eat the cake board. And I generally match the colour of the pen when I used to first start out, and I used to write the inscription, and then I would trace over with the piping. But now I'm quite kind of brave, I'll just pipe away. So I'm not too sure how close the camera is going to be. I'm going to pop my glasses on and I'm going to start to pipe. Now, I'm going to pipe Happy 6th Birthday Sahana. I've got the spelling correct. I want to pipe Sahara, but I better write pipe Sahana. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to start the words piping here. And I'm going to actually use the base of the cake board as a size guide to pipe from. But I'm just going to really just show you how I pipe, and then next week I'm really going to give you an in-depth what I'm going to do. So the first thing we've got to do is we've basically got to use our thumb and finger to secure the bag, and what I do is I slightly twist it. Now when I pipe, I use a finger to guide where I'm going, okay? And when I pipe, I also want to relax and not be too tight, but I'm basically going to squeeze, and then the piping icing is going to come out. I'm going to just break that little tip off, and I'm going to start. So when I pipe for a children's inscription, I do what I do is a point and a drop. So I'm going to lift it up, and what I do is I do not cross all the letters or dot the I's. First of all, I do my basic, so I'm connecting and I'm dropping. I'm connecting, and then I'm dropping. I'm connecting, and then I'm dropping. So when I write these letters, can you see that I write them in a clear section? I'm not too sure if this is going to show up back to front because I've got it reversed. So I'm going to lift it up and then drop that connection. Okay, now once I've done that, I'm going to come back in and lift and drop. I'm going to lift and drop. Okay, so I've got the word happy, and then I'm going to do the number 6. I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to bring it round. Remember to breathe, okay, and then I'm going to just, now if I've got any pointy bits, which I have, I'm going to get my water and a very small brush, and I'm just going to tap any pointy bits. And if you have a look at this 6, can you see it's a little bit deformed? It's not perfect. So with a little brush, can you see I can ease that shape in, and I can ease that shape back round. Okay, so you can actually correct if you've done an imperfection. You might go, I would never do an imperfection, but you sometimes do. Okay, so we got happy 6, and then I'm going to pipe birthday. So again, I'm going to, and if you notice, I'm spacing it approximately about 4 mils all the way around from the board. So I'm going to make a connection. See where it snapped? I'm just going to come back in and bring that down. And I actually have my own type of font that I pipe with. I always kind of do almost a triangular shape, okay? Is everybody seeing this okay? Can you see what I'm up to? It's kind of a little bit hard getting that camera lined up, but so I pipe, I squeeze, and then I drop. I make that connection and I lift it up, okay? And then back and forward, back and forward. Again, I've got a bit of a snap there, so I'm going to come back in, and in a minute I'll get a brush and I'll bring that together, okay? If I'm not happy with that, and I love that expression that we have here, I'm not happy, Jan, I was never around for that. But if I'm not happy, because my board I did yesterday, I can simply wipe that away. The downside is when we pipe with black, sometimes that can mark the cake board. Okay, so that's the downside. So if you pipe with black, you've got to be aware that it can stain the board. Now I don't know why, but I've just crossed my H. Now years ago, before the last year when my mum was really poorly, my son's 16th birthday, I actually made his cake at 3 in the morning, and then I got on the airplane at 7 o'clock, and when I was sitting and looking at the photographs on the camera on the airplane, I'd written happy 16th birthday, so I actually had forgotten to put the H, but he didn't actually notice, so that was awesome really. So I've got happy 6th birthday, and then I'm going to pipe the name Sahana. So again, if you notice, I'm kind of coming along all the way. Now sometimes if I'm piping a flat inscription on a square cake board, I'll actually use a ruler to line my writing up. Okay, so we've got happy 6th birthday, and her beautiful name is Sahana. Okay, so I'm just going to move this again. I want to allow a nice spacing. You can use items to make sure you've got gaps. And again, I'm just going to make that connection, lift it up, bring it round, and then park it. I've got a break there, but I will fix it up in a minute. But piping is something that we do not achieve overnight. Piping is something that we have to really, really practice. And ideally, once we are confident, you will find that, you know, you'll see a big difference. Now here, I'm just going to get my brush again and just blend that in. Can you see that's sort of sitting on top? I'm going to just get that camera to come in a little bit more, okay? And then, okay, so I'm just going to bring that together, and they'll never know unless they watch the video. It's a shame we can't have audio so I can hear what your comments are. Hopefully they're not bad. Okay. Now, what I like to do with a child's cake is I like to make the piping a little bit more whimsical. Okay. So what I like to do is I like to go back, make sure my tip is really nice and clean, and I like to pipe little dots on the ends of all the letters. Now, if you get bored today and you want to see more piping that I've done, I've got a really lovely cake in the birthday cake gallery. They're all lovely, don't get me wrong, but I made an awesome, it was a treasure chest, and it's called Captain Scarbelly. That's his nickname, this guy. I think it was his 40th. And when I piped Captain Scarbelly, I actually did 2 dots on all the writing, and it looked like little bones, as in skull and crossbones, and that looked really awesome. And what was great about that cake was I actually filled it with M&Ms, so when he cut into it, it looked really, you know, there was a hidden surprise. So I'm just going to go along. Now when we pipe and do dots, when I pipe, I don't just pipe and then pull it away, otherwise, can you see, it just drags. So what I tend to do is I do a dot and I do a slight twist. A dot and a slight twist. But can you see it just punctuates the writing a little bit more? Okay. And then I'm just going to do a couple of little more dots on the top of that one, and then on that one, and that one. But I think for children's cake, you know, writing, it looks really nice, you know. So if you've got any questions, I'm not reading as I'm recording, but if you have a question, please just leave it in the comments section. If you haven't subscribed or liked, you won't get notifications. So if you'd like, or you follow my page, when I do live feeds, you'll get a notice that I'm doing them. Okay. So now I'm just going to go back in and pipe the dots for Sahana, her name. Okay, and just on there. Now you can, if you wanted to, you could put little pearls on the end of the letters. The damp brush, all that is basically doing is knocking down those bumps, okay? We truly want to get those dots nice and smooth before the icing has formed. If the icing is still relatively damp, you can go back in about 10 minutes, but realistically, you know, you should be doing that now. Okay, and just a couple of more dots on there. Okay. Now there are lots of letter cutters that you can use. You can use the tappets. There's lots and lots of tools you can use. You know, you don't have to pipe, but realistically, I think piping is such a nice little, you know, skill to learn. And then, you know, so I'm just going to go back in and tap those down. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do hi everyone. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do the bullet candles. Okay, so bullet candles, you know, I really dislike candles that have the big chunky 60th numbers on and they're all covered in glitter. So I am a big fan of the bullet candles. Okay, now they're in the shape of a bullet, hence the name. But what I like about them is that, because I really like candles on birthday cakes, you know, providing they've not sort of spit too much when they blow the candles out. But what I love about the candles is it just makes it more, you know, it's a birthday, you know. And I think we, you know, should be celebrating them. So what I'm going to do next, I've kind of angled the writing. I've got happy 6th birthday, Sahana. Now, I've got a little bit of a smudge there. So let me just go back in. Can you see there? I've got a smudge. It won't do. We have standards here. So I'm just going to reconnect that and dot there, and then reconnect that and dot there. All right, so what I'm going to do, I am going to get some fondant and I'm going to make some small balls and I'm going to attach it to the cake. So with the fondant, I'm going to use some white, and I'm just going to make some really small pea-sized pieces. So I'm going to break up the fondant. There is no Tylos or anything like that. And I'm just going to break off and make some small pea-sized pieces. Now, depending on where you buy your peas, will depend on the size of your peas. But realistically, they're kind of small. You know, we don't want them too large. So I'm just doing these as a size guide. If you wanted to, you could roll it in a sausage and then just cut it up as you go, you know. So and I'm going to use 6. Now sometimes if I do a boy's birthday cake and I want like a black and white theme, then I normally, you know, use black fondant and then put white candles on, and it looks really awesome. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just get my brush and I'm going to reshape the balls. Now if you find the balls are sort of cracky and not so good, just roll them into a little sausage like that and then back into a nice round ball. Okay, so get them. Now I am doing 6, but if this is a 21st birthday, I wouldn't be doing 21 because otherwise it might set the cake on fire. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit of water there and a little bit of water there. we've got a beautiful day today. We've had some really rotten weather a couple of weeks ago. It was like being in England. No. But we've got some really lovely weather today, which is lovely. Because we live in such a, well, I live in such a beautiful place. So where is everyone from? Can you put up where you're from? Okay, so what I've done is I've just staggered those dots of fondant, okay? And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to get a little bit of water on each one, okay? And then with the candles, I'm just going to push them down. And let me just change that angle. You can see that. And I'm going to push them down until it almost sort of gives me like a dinky donut. So I'm going to do pink, white, pink, white, like so, okay? And then what I will do is I will use a glue stick, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so I'm going to use a glue stick, and what I'm going to do is just gently lift my cake up, and this is just a spare board, by the way. I'm going to pop a gripper mat onto the turntable, and then using my glue stick, okay, and it's blue and it dries clear, I'm just going to put a few little dots as I go along around the cake board, okay. Now there's all different types of ribbon. I don't know if you saw the cheeseburger cake that I put on Facebook this morning, which Jill came and did a private class. But this ribbon is really a nice ribbon. I tend to, when I go and buy ribbon, rather than just get a metre at a time and have an off-cut, I tend to wait until they've got a sale, they've got like 40% off ribbons, and I tend to buy a whole roll. Now this roll is really lovely. It's just a 9mm height in ribbon, and it's a perfect thickness for sitting on the cake. So what I want to do is I just want to neaten up the end, and then what I normally do is I just pop a tiny bit of glue just on the end of that ribbon, and I always make the join at the back, and what I do is just slowly but surely, I actually been stingy here, so I need to put a bit more glue on there, and then what I do is I just literally attach the ribbon all the way around, and realistically it just finishes off the cake, you know. Now a friend of mine, she has a personalised ribbon, so she actually prints her kids' names off it, and she's got 4 kids, so she's probably, you know, there's value in that machine. But the ribbon's pretty because it just kind of finishes off the edge of the cake board. Okay, so like I said, next week I will do a proper full-on live tutorials about royal icing. I will share with you some tips. I have got my book 2 is coming out. It's in edit form at the minute. I'm getting it proofread, and then we will then let you know as and when that is happening. So I'm just going to put this little topper on top, and that is the cake completed. So I hope you have learned a few little tips. with piping, you truly must practice. And so with practice, it makes progress, okay? I really dislike the term practice makes perfect, because it doesn't. The other thing I really want to emphasize is sometimes, and I find this in our classes, we tend to think as adults, if we're learning this, I mean, there are kids that learn this and etc., but I find us adults, we're very impatient with ourselves, and we tend to think, oh, we should be picking this up quicker. But this is a practice skill. This is a practice craft, you know, like anything, knitting or sewing. It takes time to do. So we need to just allow ourselves to learn, to make mistakes, but to learn, you know. So what I think we sometimes need to do is just, you know, plan it better, not rush everything, and allow ourselves to practice, you know, and because it's great fun. I love this, you know. It doesn't matter that this is for, you know, my business. I would be loving it if it was, you know, for a friend. So my point is, we need to be kinder to ourselves and not so harsh, and not think, wow, it wasn't successful, because it takes many cakes to progress and to get better, you know. And I think what's wonderful is that when you give your cakes or cookies or cupcakes to your friends or your family, it's an amazing thing that you've just made and created, you know, and truly is a gift from within, you know. So without sort of sounding too Oprah-like, I just want to encourage you to be kinder to yourselves when you're learning, and it's not a fast process, you know. It may look fast when you watch the YouTube videos and different stuff, but it is a slower progress. Saying which, I don't know if you know, but I also have tutorials on my website. You can watch individual ones. There's my cooking ones, my cake decorating ones, and you can go to my website and subscribe. You can watch them on a monthly basis and rent them, or you can subscribe for a yearly and have a yearliness of my beautiful English accent, sharing on my cake skills. So I really hope you've learnt a few things today. The family are coming to pick this cake up in another hour's time, so I'm going to have my third cup of coffee. So wherever you might be in sunny Australia or worldwide, I wish you a wonderful weekend, and join me next weekend for some piping tips. I do have lots of videos also on Facebook, and my Facebook page. Under the video tab, there's one that's done about 12,000 views so far of my flowers. So I've also got a YouTube video. So please subscribe, like Facebook page, and then when I do my live feeds, you'll be the first to know. So thanks for watching, and leave some questions and I will answer them as soon as I can. Thank you guys.